overcapitalize them, take them public. The equity becomes a Bitcoin derivative. The volatility is off the charts, right? If half of the enterprise or more is Bitcoin, you get to a 55 vol, then you've set fire to the company, you make a fortune, right? What risk did you take? You took Bitcoin risk. You see, everybody, but here's the thing, right? I mean, this is a big ego thing. Everybody's got a big ego, right? The problem is when you stray from the path of righteousness. You embrace Bitcoin, you become a great Bitcoin custodian, then you trade shit coins. You embrace Bitcoin, you create a Bitcoin fund, then you start to trade altcoins, right? You embrace Bitcoin, you securitize it, and then you drift off to do the next thing, right? The world's full of people that they found it, and then they thought, well, I've conquered this, now I got to do something else.
Hey guys, welcome to Everyday Finance. A message that is both obvious and forceful is delivered by Saylor, the executive chairman of MicroStrategy. He asserts that the only thing that is superior to Bitcoin is more Bitcoin. A view, there is no alternative to Bitcoin. It is the only option. Saylor is of the opinion that it is well on its way to becoming an asset worth $160 trillion, and that it is on an inexorable trajectory that cannot be deviated from by any power on earth. Despite the fact that many people are still looking for the next big thing, Saylor contends that doing so is a waste of time. Bitcoin, on the other hand, is the signal, and everything else is simply noise to him. Those who postpone may win. Upspending their entire lives running after illusions, he warns, and he urges people to take ownership of it right now in order to ensure their future. Maintain your attention to the very end of the video, as Saylor explains why missing out on Bitcoin right now could mean missing out on the future, as well as how even a little allocation could have a significant impact on one's life.
So we have the option to do intelligent things or not intelligent things, and that's the counterparty risk. You're taking risk to the management team and the management strategy. So operating companies can do that, and this is an interesting metric to evaluate them. Trust companies, they can't, and that's kind of like why you want to put, if you want to buy gold and you want to leave it in your portfolio for 40 years, you don't want to wake up and find out that the CEO of the GLD decided to do a mortgage a junk bond to buy ice cream truck companies and speculate on whatever, because it's just too many, complications for you. So there's a place for both strategies, but I think people have struggled with the idea of how do I know what's accretive and dilutive? And BTC yield is a simple metric that we're doing because our shareholders want more Bitcoin per share, and they've said it loudly and frequently. But I also think it's a contribution to the entire community, and I think that any company that wants to pursue a Bitcoin standard would be wise to stare at that KPI and think about adopting it, because it's just a useful communications tech tool. Yeah, I think people work too hard at this. I mean, it's a very simple idea. You've got $1 trillion asset going to $100 trillion asset. It's 100x. And so what's the best way to make money? It's basically capitalize a private company with Bitcoin, capitalize a public company with Bitcoin, convert debt to Bitcoin, borrow money and buy Bitcoin. If you're a VC, you can try to find the next 10 Alibabas. That's hard. Or you can just go and invest in 10 private companies that do anything, that are cash cows. How hard is it to find a company growing 0 to 5% that makes money? It's easy. How hard is it to find a private company that's going to grow more than 20% a year for the next decade without consuming capital? Hard, right? Go find one of the cash cows that's private, invest in them, convert their treasury to Bitcoin, overcapitalize them, take them public. The equity becomes a Bitcoin derivative. The volatility is off the charts, right? If half of the enterprise or more is Bitcoin, you get to a 55 vol, then you've set fire to the company, you make a fortune, right? What risk did you take? You took Bitcoin risk. You see, everybody, but here's the thing, right? I mean, this is a big ego thing. Everybody's got a big ego. And the biggest idea and the biggest, most important thing in the 21st century was already invented and discovered by Satoshi. Satoshi created digital capital. Digital capital is worth hundreds of trillions of dollars. $400 trillion by my last estimate. Somebody's already invented a better idea than you think you're smart enough to come up with a better idea than $450 trillion idea? Like, what's the second best idea? Right? The point is there is no second best idea, right? There's an idea. It's called Bitcoin. It's digital capital. Okay, so you've got the best idea and you're a business person. And if you humble yourself before Satoshi and you recognize the brilliance of digital capital, and you recognize the fact that this is inevitably going to go from $1 trillion to 10 trillion to 20 trillion to 40 trillion to 80 trillion to 160 trillion. Nothing stops this train, right? Nothing stops this train. Once you recognize that, you're a VC investor. What do? You invest in private companies, put them on the Bitcoin standard, take them public, and they strengthen the Bitcoin system, and then they draft off the Bitcoin network, right? You're a private equity investor. You find big private companies, you invest in them, you recapitalize them with Bitcoin, you take them public. You're an investment banker. What do? You don't negotiate 1,000 complicated mergers between 1,000 different counterparties or how many different pairs, 1,000 companies and 1,000 options each. So it's 1,000 times 1,000 combinations, and you can solve all of the combinations because you're brilliant. Or you just merge 1,000 companies with Bitcoin. Bitcoin's a universal merger partner. Okay, I got 1,000 zombie companies at the bottom of the Russell 2000. How do you fix them? Recapitalize them on Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the universal merger partner. Okay, but I need to come up with a new idea. No, you don't. Satoshi already came up with the idea, right? Everybody wants to come up with a new idea. Well, I got a company. I got to grow my company. Oh, is your company going to grow faster than 29% a year with no cost, risk-free for the next 21 years? You have a better idea than that? Right? Again, you have pride cometh before a fall. A bunch of alpha males running around, and they all look at, yeah, Satoshi was smart, but I got a better thing. Yeah, Bitcoin was good, but I got a better thing. It's like, but how am I going to get rich and famous if I just embrace Bitcoin? By the way, there are ways to get rich and famous by embracing Bitcoin. Right? The problem is when you stray from the path of righteousness. You embrace Bitcoin, you become a great Bitcoin custodian, then you trade shit coins. You embrace Bitcoin, you create a Bitcoin fund, then you start to trade altcoins, right? You embrace Bitcoin, you securitize it, and then you drift off to do the next thing, right? The world's full of people that they found it, and then they thought, well, I've conquered this, now I got to do something else. By the way, I was that guy, right? When I came public, I had a good thing, MicroStrategy, the greatest business intelligence software. We grew for a decade. We conquered the world. I was like, okay, well, I've declared victory. Now I got to invent 10 more things. So I launched 10 more things. I launched alarm.com. I launched angel.com. I launched wisdom.com. I launched alert.com. I launched blah, blah, blah. It's like, none of those work as well. It's like, guess what? Just because you can do one thing doesn't mean you can do the next 10. It's like, Napoleon, he ended up taking over France. Good for him. He was an Italian. He took over France. But then he's like, I think I'll take Italy too. Oops. He took it. He lost it. I think I'll go conquer Egypt. Oops. He took it. He lost it. I think I'll go into Syria. That didn't work so well. I think I'll go take over Spain. Oops. That didn't work. Now I'll go conquer Germany. Oops. Got it. Lost it. I think I'll take Russia, get to Moscow. Oops, he drops 3 armies along the way, one in Russia, one in Egypt, one in Spain, manages to get millions of people to follow him. They die, right? It's like, congratulations on that, seriously.
A more intelligent, quicker, and more resilient form of capital, Bitcoin, is the evolution of capital. Traditional financial systems are dependent on infrastructure that is antiquated, slow, and weak. This infrastructure shuts down on weekends and devalues the currency through debt and inflation. Bitcoin, on the other hand, operates around the clock, is borderless, and can be programmed. In comparison, the value of fiat currency is decreasing, while the value of Bitcoin has been increasing at a rate of more than 40% every year, stated by Saylor. The disparity between new capital and old capital is widening at a rapid rate. Nothing else, in his opinion, even comes close to competing with it. All of the alternatives, whether they are assets, pitches, or opportunities for investment, are nothing more than noise. When it comes down to it, the only thing that can be considered superior than having Bitcoin is having more of it.
Right? It's like the Alexander the Great, Napoleon complex. Everybody thinks that because they came up with one idea that they were put on earth to, as God's gift to deliver their brilliance. And there's a point of humility when you realize that maybe your brilliance was to discover somebody else had a good idea and to embrace the idea. So, yeah, I think there are a lot of good businesses to be created on Bitcoin, but the operative words are on Bitcoin, on Bitcoin, and focus. And that's why laser eyes matter so much. It's just laser-like focus, right? And just because you can do a thing doesn't mean you should do a thing. And some people have to do a thing. Or maybe there's a responsible way to do the thing because you're solving a problem. Like in Shanghai, they want Bitcoin, but they need a state-regulated, custodian that the Chinese government will support. So the guy that sets up a Bitcoin ETF in Shanghai will open up a gateway for 1 billion Chinese people to buy Bitcoin, and that'll be good for China and good for the world and good for Bitcoin. And that's an idea, right? There's probably another idea is probably a regulated Chinese company that could be the MicroStrategy of China. Because what is MicroStrategy doing? We're giving people bonds. We're giving them high vol equity. We're giving them options. Do people want, some people, how do you buy Bitcoin at the all-time high and take very little downside risk or no mark-to-market risk? You buy a bond. You don't want the equity. So once you embrace the idea that the world's full of a lot of people, they're in different regulatory regimes, they're in different cultures, they're different, the 80-year-old has a different risk profile than the 20-year-old. Institutions and churches and endowments have different tax treatments and different regulatory requirements than a hedge fund, than a vol trader, than an institutional investor, right? So Satoshi gave us a big idea, like perfect money, profound, big, huge paradigm shift idea. But it's not different than electricity. It's like, or fire, right? Oh, we can extract energy from material, right? Right. We can actually move energy cleanly, powerfully over hundreds of miles into your bathroom. Okay, that's the big idea. But how many different businesses got launched based on fire? How many businesses got launched based on electricity? A lot, right? Like a lot. How many businesses got launched or will be launched based on digital capital? Digital energy? Oh, a lot, I have no doubt. But it's just remember, pick the right protocol, and don't get distracted and try to avoid blowing yourself up, in the process. And then you'll do okay. Right. The empowerment of Bitcoin is, wouldn't it be great if we took our money, we invested in an asset, and we could turn off the TV and forget about it for a decade? Right. That's why at the end of the day, you have to keep coming back to Bitcoin and come back to this idea of an asset without that counterparty risk, right? Without them, you could talk for 20 hours about the risks, right? And for the most part, most people would benefit just understanding Bitcoin, and Bitcoin, I think, is the solution to the great majority of the people's problems. These other things it's like, there's a professional guy who has an equity investment fund who might have $10 billion of capital, and their charter says they have to invest in publicly traded operating companies that trade on the NASDAQ or the New York Stock Exchange. And so that guy can't buy Bitcoin. Even though I would say that's the, the risk adjusted best thing. At the end of the day, it's like that guy can't buy that. And that guy took money from a pension fund that represents 8 million retired firefighters or something, and they can't buy Bitcoin. So what you have is you have one pension fund that represents the interest of unborn children, people that don't even live right now, right? It's truly a public institution with a long duration. They're looking out 100 years. They have allocated their capital to a variety of money managers. They might have 2% with a commodity trader. That guy can buy Bitcoin maybe. They've got another X% with an equity trader. That guy can't. The pension fund can't do anything.
As far as Michael Saylor is concerned, Bitcoin is the most brilliant concept of the 21st century, and it has already been uncovered. Instead, than going after the next initiative that is fueled by buzz or dispersing attention across an infinite number of distractions, Saylor believes that the true strength resides in the ability to focus that one has. Rather of simply building around Bitcoin, build on top of it. Utilize it to recapitalize, make contributions to the network, and keep growing along with it. He warns that history is filled with talented people who lost their path by stretching themselves too far, such as Napoleon, whose ambitions extended beyond France and ultimately led to his downfall. There is no assurance that we will have another major success. According to Saylor, the path forward is through using clarity, discipline, and a concentration that is as sharp as a laser. Bitcoin is the best idea of our time. I encourage you to embrace it, to stay on track, and to avoid deviating from the path. To what extent do you agree with Saylor's point of view? In the comments section, please share your ideas.